So yours was more to do with the gender differences. Yours was more to do with the type of...
That's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, and yours is more to do with where it fits within the overall scheme of activities that are available. In terms of those three areas, where do you think we're at now, and where do you think we need to be for ICT to be used more effectively in schools?
There are definitely some aspects that ICT lends itself to better than to others.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in your book, your chapter, I mean, you mentioned data loggers and digital microscopes. And I think it allows us to ask the what if question. It might be through simulation, but it allows you to do things that you couldn't normally do sometimes.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, sort of thinking of experiences that I've had with children, using, for example, digital microscopes and looking at mini beasts through them, you know, it's the sort of sense of wonder that they get when they see this image on a big screen, you know, and it's, you know, it really does engage the children when they get the opportunity to use, you know, equipment like that. And, you know, it just gives them, you know, that sense of excitement.
The cloud should help remove some of that stuff away, because your local authority can buy into a certain pack. So that wasn't really mentioned, how the cloud evolve as the cloud evolves, how our use of that will evolve. So I'm not quite sure where we are, Susan, in these three things. I do think we've moved on from 20 years, but I'm not sure how far we've moved on in terms of our mindset. We are using the technologies more, and the technology is more readily available and getting fractionally cheaper, but how we use it, I'm not sure we've changed.
No, because I actually wonder whether the dreaded words ontology and epistemology in schools has changed, whether we are using more high-tech equipment to do the same things and to teach the same way, rather than recognising that we can actually teach differently. And maybe our practices in classrooms are still using technology just a higher specification, but not changing what we do. And I'm not suggesting we throw everything out, but but I don't think we're making full use of what the technology affords us.
But there are a number of people who are quite happy communicating through things like MSN, Skype, Yahoo, all these chat rooms, but we don't actually, in our teaching, promote the use of social networking to work collaboratively live on a document. Now that facility is open to a lot of people nowadays, so a group, although they can work together in a fixed environment, once they leave that fixed environment, that work is left behind. But if they're working on an electronic item, they could go away and work geographically in disparate places and still link and work synchronously. So they could text each other and say, right, tonight 6:30, let's put half an hour on this. And we haven't really tapped into that kind of use of ICT. Or at least I haven't.
I think the paper was of interest in looking at how children can improve their learning with the use of a computer, and usually in a classroom situation, teachers have children working in pairs or in groups. Now that might be because of the number of computers within the classroom, but it would seem that you could perhaps divide your classroom up in a different way, to have a carousel where computers are at one and say another activity is somewhere else, because it seemed that if pupils are working on their own with a computer, then their learning is enhanced. Because with children, it's said that, you know, that girls like to collaborate, but boys are more competitive. And if you take away the competitive aspect, boys then do better.
But then how does that help the girls then if they want to collaborate and they're working on a...
Yeah, and that's why I think the summary at the end of the paper suggested that teachers or those who are making up programme or the use of the programme look at the girls' use of the computer and work with that. Was there anything in your paper about...
Nothing about gender.
No.
The paper was actually more about the technology and how the technology is being used or not used. and it was arguing that the technology can enhance learning because it could bring in a greater level of interactivity as opposed to reading. And it quoted that old sort of Chinese proverb that I learn more by doing than by reading or hearing. And they were arguing that the kind of software available now, either through commercial software or through the web or whatever, you can develop processes which are far more interactive to engage, and possibly you learn from some of the games and that's out strategies to engage and enhance and capture people's creativity and problem solving skills. So you've got a lot of children who will play games, learn how to jump through the hoop, get to the next stage, and they develop a sense of perseverance, or they find a cheat. But when they come to the schoolwork, they don't have that kind of resilience to stick at the task. So is there things in the gaming industry that we can take from the ICT and build it into an education format? And then they also argued that from a practitioner's perspective is there's still hurdles for us to overcome in education to make it more consistent in our approach to using ICT. The other thing we're not making great use of, and that's hinted at that article, is all the Web 2 technologies. You know, in the past I would go to Google. Well, some evidence suggests that kids will go to YouTube or Facebook or someplace like that, as opposed to, say, Wikipedia or something.
Okay. So what was the message from your paper then? What do you think as a teacher?
As a teacher, the message I took from it was that there's great potential there, but for a variety of reasons we're not tapping into that potential. And part of it might be that we're not doing enough at the initial teacher education stage to promote it, or we're not doing enough with the infrastructure to support it.
I was actually quite reassured because a lot of what Anne Coulter was suggesting and promoting through that chapter as being good practice in ICT, I felt was what I see happening or developing in a lot of the primary classrooms, certainly, and sort of my authority and within my sort of cohort of contacts, in terms of using, sort of hardware like digital cameras, data loggers, and so on. You know, that's certainly happening in a lot of classrooms. The use of interactive whiteboards, using YouTube videos, as Neil had suggested, is becoming far more prevalent. You know, people are becoming quite skilled at going in and finding appropriate resources that they can use to maybe start off a lesson or to illustrate a particular point, where a bit of practical work might not be quite so easy to do. So I was actually quite reassured because I felt that a lot of what she was putting forward was what I was seeing beginning to develop in primary classrooms.